Welcome back to Go for Two Sports. I am your host, Aaron Shedd, and today we have a Week 7 NFL review. We had a bunch of close games, a couple nail-biters, and a Super Bowl rematch. We're going to go through them game by game, team by team, and I'm going to tell you what I think and my analysis on each game. If you aren't already subscribed, do me a big favor and drop a subscribe down below. Hit a like and comment and tell me what you think about the NFL currently. As we had another crazy week. Drop your hot takes in the comments as well, and let's get into it. Starting off first, we have the Patriots and the Jags. The Jags are going to win this one 32-16 in their second straight win in London as they got embarrassed last week. They come back this week and beat the Patriots 32-16. The Patriots got off to a fast start, up 10-0, but then absolutely collapsed in every aspect of the game. They allowed a 96-yard punt return late in the second quarter to the Jags, which were able to give the Jags a much-needed momentum boost and was able to let the Jags score 22 unanswered points from there on out and end up winning that game pretty decidedly. Drake May gets his second start for the Patriots and looks good. He has 276 yards, 2 touchdowns on 37 attempts, completing 26 passes. He was only sacked twice, which was a pretty good showing by a pretty banged-up Patriots offensive line. But at this point in the season, you got to wonder, is it worth it to put Drake May around such a bad offensive line and overall group on that offense in general? Is it worth it for 10 games for the Patriots to probably not even get maybe another win or two at most, but you just really wonder, is it worth it? Is it going to stunt Drake May's growth as he is their future in New England? And you never know, that maybe taking all these hits and just playing in a bad system could develop some bad habits, like we seen with Bryce Young. He played all of last year in a bad situation and has just some horrible habits because of it. I like to say last year was the Panthers' fault. This year, it's Bryce Young's fault. Bryce Young just did not take any developmental steps, and we hope the Patriots don't see that with Drake May as well. Moving on to the Jags side of things, the Jags go down 10-0 early, but then score 22 unanswered. The Jags get a much-needed win against an easy Patriots team. This is only their second win on the season, but their talent on the team makes you know the Jags are a better team than what they're playing as they shown that this week with a big win over the Patriots. Tank Bigsby had 26 carries and 118 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just another massive game in place of starter Travis Etienne. Doug Peterson came out today and said that when Etienne comes back, he will regain the starting role, even though Tank Bigsby has been going crazy. So makes you wonder how long he will retain that starting role, as there has been some rumors coming up in Week 8, the trade deadline, that Travis Etienne may be on the block. So look for something to potentially go on there. The Jags just ran the ball very well all game. Late in the second half, they had a certain point in the game where they went 19 consecutive rushes without a pass, and they were able to move the ball throughout that stretch. And just a great way to wean down the game and close out a game strong with the run game. Parker Washington had a 96-yard punt return, which was the first ever punt return touchdown or special teams touchdown in general in an international NFL game, as they've had a lot, like 500 touchdowns in total in all games, but this is the first time that there has been a special teams touchdown in an international game. Brian Thomas Jr. continues to be the Jaguars' best receiver on the roster, looking like a steal late in the first round, and he has 5 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown. Continues to be Trevor Lawrence's top target, as Trevor Lawrence had a semi-quiet game, but they didn't really need it, as they outrushed the Patriots 171 to 38 yards on the ground. just a great balance attack for the Jags, but they have a rough schedule coming up. They play Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, and Houston in the next 4. The Jaguars really needed this one to give them some momentum and just a little bit of just a just a little bit of passion in their gut as they take on 4 of the top teams over the next 4 weeks. The Packers and the Texans had a classic. You got the Lions and the Vikings. They both had a classic as well today. Both really good games. All 4 really good teams. The Jags are going to struggle immensely over the next 4 weeks. That's going to do it for the Jags and the Patriots. We are moving on to the the Titans versus the Bills. The Titans versus the Bills. The Bills were going to win this one 34-10. As the Titans came into the game, they started Mason Rudolph for Will Levis because it just hadn't been going good for Will Levis so far this season. A disastrous start to the year. They're going to change it up, go with Mason Rudolph to see if they can get a little bit of firepower in that offense, as they haven't been able to finish games. They've been averaging 2.4 fourth quarter points, which is second to last in the league. They hoped bringing in Mason Rudolph could help them finish a game, and it did not. They jumped out to a lead early, and the Bills were able to just come out and squash that lead. Excuse me. Giving up 27 unanswered points to the Bills was just not ideal for the Titans after the early lead. The injuries are starting to pile up. Leto Watson made his first start last week, and the offensive line gave up 0 sacks. But this week, he was inactive, and Jalen Duncan got the start. 4 plays into the game, he goes down. So Nicholas Petier-Freet has to come in, and he allowed the most pressures in the game. And that just a recipe for disaster for an offensive line that's trying to build a better unit. As every time it seems like they take a step forward, it just is 2 steps back for the Titans as this game got out of hand. Rudolph completed 25 passes to 9 different targets for 215 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, which, on paper is an improvement from Will Levis, but when it translates to the game, it just didn't seem like the Titans were able to sustain any type of momentum in drives and weren't able to finish the game, as they just run out of firepower late in the game and lose by 24. For the Bills, Josh Allen had yet another MVP-like game. He went 21 for 33, 323 yards with 2 touchdowns and no picks. He's starting the season now. I think he has like 10 touchdowns and no interceptions. No turnovers so far for Josh Allen, which is rare so far in this league. As you see, even guys like Patrick Mahomes now has a bunch of turnovers on the season, more turnovers than he has touchdowns. But yet the Chiefs are still undefeated. So that makes you just realize how good Josh Allen is playing with a pretty lackluster group around him. He did have that one game a couple weeks ago where he went 9 for 30, and that was not a good performance, but every other game so far this year, he has had strong performances. Look for him to be in the MVP conversation. Amari Cooper, the new addition from the Browns, had 4 receptions for 66 yards and a touchdown in his debut with the Bills. He's only the second player in NFL history to have a touchdown in his debut with multiple teams after being traded mid-season. He did it with the Cowboys after being traded from the Raiders, and now he's done it again with the Bills after being traded from the Browns. Gregory Rousseau had an amazing game. 6 quarterback hits, no sacks, but the 6 quarterback hits is a most in a game since Chris Jones had 6 against the Raiders way back in Week 18 against the Raiders in 2022. So not even last season, 2022. The Bills scored on 5 straight drives after halftime thanks to Josh Allen, learning how to air out the ball again. He went 1 for 5 in the first half, and then in the second half, he went 6 for 18 for 114 yards and a touchdown on passes 10 or more yards down the field in the second half. He went 1 for 5 on such passes in the first half. It's just a drastic swap after halftime for Josh Allen and the Bills, which helps them score on 5 consecutive drives and just come out and take a huge lead. And the Titans were unable to find any success in the second half to respond to the big second half. Josh Allen again just having a great game. The Bills' offense is finally coming together after the pickup of Amari Cooper. This game just went all Bills after the first Titans lead. As they went up 10-0, the Bills would come back and go crazy for the rest of the game. As we are moving on, we got the Lions taking on the Vikings. The Lions and the Vikings had a classic in Week 7, but the Lions squeak by and win 31-29 in the battle for first place in a stacked NFC North. This was the best game of the week. I wouldn't say by far, but really by far. The Texans and the Green Bay Packers had a good game as well, but this one was much more entertaining and back and forth, and you had more big plays and just an overall better game to watch, in my opinion. Jared Goff went 22 for 25, 280 yards and 2 touchdowns. He didn't have an incompletion until the second half, going 13 for 13 in the first half. Which is he's the only quarterback this season to have a perfect half, and he's done it 3 times. Obviously, the other week having a perfect game throughout the entire game, and now having a perfect first half, only missing 3 passes the entire games. Jared Goff is looking incredible. He definitely has to be in the MVP conversation, especially after this game, and if he isn't, then you guys need to be talking to some different people, because Jared Goff is going crazy. Jahmyr Gibbs also had a crazy game. He went 15 carries for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns, plus 44 yards through the air. Jahmyr Gibbs just had an all-around great performance. The usually strong Vikings defense had no answer for Gibbs, as he just went crazy. David Montgomery was having a good game until he left the game with an injury. He would come back later in the game, but it just stumped all of his momentum. The Lions' dynamic duo, Sonic and Knuckles, again show up very well this game, this time with Jahmyr Gibbs going crazy. The Lions' defense has amazing depth, and that was shown today as their depth had a rotation of 4 or 5 different guys that come into play for the injured Aiden Hutchinson, and they were able to get 4 sacks with 4 different defenders, each totaling one. Aiden Hutchinson, there was reports that he could be able to come back in time for the Super Bowl if the Lions were to make it that far. That would obviously be a huge addition for the Lions, as they are trying to make a Super Bowl push, but I personally think that's highly doubtful, as a broken tibia and fibula, that's a devastating type injury, and he should be out for a while. If I was the Lions, I wouldn't even risk it. Guard Kati Awaskia, or however you say his name, he looked like a liability playing in place of Kevin Zeitler, who was out with a groin injury. That was a game-time decision, and he was flagged in the first quarter twice on back-to-back holding calls. Just a big liability moving forward for a usually good Lions, probably the best in the league Lions offensive line, with guys like Penei Sewell and Frank Ragnow on the inside. The Lions just have a really good team, and their defensive superstar Brian Branch just showed why he is just that today. Just another crazy performance for Brian Branch, as he continues to play multiple defensive positions on that defense, and it's just all around for the Lions. For the Vikings take their first loss on the year, drop down to 5-1, but the Vikings really do look legit. They have probably the best running defense in the league, but today they had no answers for Jahmyr Gibbs, letting him go for 180-something yards total. Losing by 2 points to the Lions doesn't mean that the Vikings season is over. It doesn't mean that the Vikings are exposed as frauds. It just means that the Vikings met another good team and, just so happened to drop this one. I believe in the Vikings. I know the consensus is that they are frauds, but I believe that the Vikings will be a playoff team and will continue to play well throughout this season. Sam Darnold goes 22 for 27, 259 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. The interception was a costly one to Brian Branch, but Sam Darnold overall had a pretty good game in a duel with Jared Goff. Justin Jefferson had 7 catches, 81 yards, and a touchdown. He really displayed his physicality, making a bunch of plays. He was very fired up in this game. He was getting in defenders' face. He was talking trash. He was dancing. Just your normal Justin Jefferson stuff. So glad I picked him up on my fantasy team. He is a menace and had a great game for the Vikings. Ivan Pace Jr. had a good game on the defensive side as well. He was all over the place, getting multiple pressures throughout the game, and it just seemed like every time you look up, the commentators were shouting his name. He even returned a fumble back for a touchdown, which gave the Vikings the lead late in the game. But unfortunately, the Vikings would leave too much time on the clock for the Lions, and they would just run it all out, come down the field, and kick a almost game-winning field goal. There was a little bit time left on the clock. A little drama at the end is the Vikings have a legal formation penalty with the ball that was snapped at the 2 seconds left on the clock. The snap would take 0.1 seconds off the clock or something like that, and would ultimately leave just 1 second on the clock when the foul was committed, but the NFL rules doesn't allow for a 10-second runoff, so the Vikings did get one more chance, but ultimately would get sacked on that play as the Lions would go on to win by 2 thanks to that field goal late in the game. Just probably the best game of the week so far. We have Monday Night Football tonight, so we will see if they can stand it up. But that's going to be tough as the Vikings and the Lions put on one hell of a show. Moving on, we have the Seahawks taking on the Falcons. Well, the Seahawks and the Falcons, the Seahawks win 34-14. Seattle snapped a 3-game losing streak after winning their first 3 and then dropping their last 3. They get a dominant win over Atlanta. Geno Smith led an explosive offense while the defense locked up Atlanta all game, just allowing 14 points to a stacked offense with superstars such as Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kirk Cousins, Kyle Pitts. Just was able to hold them all in check. This defense has been getting criticized a lot recently. They are pretty banged up, and the running game has been just destroying this Seahawks defense. But they were able to keep that in check for the most part today. Bijan did go over 100, but this Seahawks defense did look well as they have they locked them up most of the game and then ended the game with 3 straight takeaways, and that's wild to me because the Seahawks have only had 1 forced turnover in the last 5 games, and then they get 3 to end the game and capitalize off them offensively as well. The offensive line held up despite being down to its 4th option at right tackle, with rookie 6th-rounder Mike Jarrell getting the start. He had a false start and gave up 1 sack in this game, so a shaky performance for, a backup, but on the bright side, it was the only sack the Seahawks gave up all game. So all sides of the ball for the Seahawks clicking, and they were able to dominate the Falcons. As for the Falcons, the Atlanta Falcons have got to find a way to build the pass rush. They had a premier pick, number 8 in the draft, and could have spent it on a edge rusher such as Dallas Turner, Leatu Latu, but nope, they decided to draft and stash for the future Michael Penix. Who knows how long he's going to be sitting? At least 2 years behind Kirk Cousins, assume he stays healthy and gets the starting job again next year. That's just a baffling pick. It was then, still is to me, as it's showing every week why Atlanta needs help on defense. Look for them to hit the waiver wire and teams' practice squads to try to get any extra help on that line to get some kind of pressure built up over there for the Falcons. After winning 3 straight games, the Falcons get embarrassed this week. They couldn't stop shooting themselves in the foot as they were flagged 9 times for 72 yards, including a dumb pass interference or a dumb pass interference and a dumb roughing the passer that extended two Seahawks drives, and which both drives led to a touchdown after those costly flags. The defense, bend but not break philosophy has worked so far for them up to this point in the year, but today it just all fell into pieces as the defense gave up 6 plays of 20 yards or more, and it just overall was very, very bad against the big plays, struggling to find other words to use except just bad. Atlanta obviously brung in what's the guy on the edge? I can't remember his name, but the guy Matthew Judon from the Patriots. But they need help. They need help on the other side of the edge, as he's the only player to get pressure in this game. I think what the stat was, he was the only player to get pressure in this game. And he's just with a group that is just lacking talent, that the Atlanta Falcons need to build that group up for sure. Kirk Cousins turned the ball over 3 times, and just not good stuff. Not what you want to see from a dude you're paying $140 million to, who's coming off an Achilles injury and is already pretty old. So the Falcons have some questions heading into next week as they drop down to 4-3 now, but they still hold second place in that division pending Tampa Bay's game tonight versus the Ravens. As we are moving on to the Bengals and the Browns. Well, the Bengals and the Browns played in yet another slop fest of a game. The Bengals barely win 21-14 as they held the lead most of the game, but the Browns did almost come back, but ultimately it was just a bad game. There was never a doubt in my mind that the Bengals weren't going to win this game, especially after quarterback for the Browns, Deshaun Watson, would go down with a ruptured Achilles. But Joe Burrow went 15 for 25 for 181 yards and 2 touchdowns. Relatively low numbers for him, but they were able to get the job done even with the lack of a running game. Only 59 yards as a team is just not going to get it done in the league. This Bengals offense is known for its passing game, but it does need to develop some type of rushing attack if it's going to make any type of push late in the season. They get their 3rd win of the year here in hopes to turn the season around after starting 1-4. Just not ideal situation for the Bengals, but they're getting there. They're building back up. Higgins and Chase both grabbed a touchdown and both looked very well, going for over 50 yards apiece. Charlie Jones took the opening kickoff 100 yards for a score, which is the longest kickoff return touchdown so far this year. And the Bengals just click on all sides of the ball except on the running game, as they're able to win 21-14. For the Browns, the Browns lost their starting quarterback Deshaun Watson to an unfortunate ruptured Achilles. And I'm gonna just say the backlash that I've seen online and the consistent trolling and booing of Deshaun Watson that I've seen online after he got injured is absolutely disgusting. Never have I seen a fan base turn on a player for getting injured like this bad. Like, so many people in the comment sections on Instagram, or and just on Twitter, just these ridiculous comments coming out and thanking this injury and being grateful that Deshaun Watson is injured. And me personally, that's sick. I know we all don't like the guy. He's not a great person, but that to me is just sickening. It's horrible to see things like that, especially coming from your own fans. The Browns do have a poverty franchise, and it starts with the fans. It starts with the fans being there and sticking up for their players and their team. As Myles Garrett said in his post-game interview, it's sickening to see them turn on a guy, no matter if he hasn't been the a model citizen or not. He wasn't charged and didn't serve time for his accused crimes, even though there's more coming. But all are innocent until proven guilty, so we have to just assume his innocence as he's not a great person based on the things that he was accused of. But you don't wish an injury on any player, as that's just that takes away his livelihood. He's done for the season. The Browns bring in DTR, and he doesn't look good. He throws 2 quick interceptions, so they have to then bring in Jameis Winston, who comes in, but he throws a garbage time touchdown. Not enough, too little, too late for the Browns as they fall to the Bengals 21-14. Nick Chubb would have his return, his first game this year, as he had 11 attempts for 22 yards. 2 yards a carry isn't what you want, but he is coming off a pretty gruesome leg injury, and he did get his first score in over a year. Defense did their job against the Bengals offense, but they couldn't hold all game, and the offense did let them down on several occasions. But after Deshaun Watson went down, this team just lacked any type of fight. It seemed like they have given up on this season, especially after losing Amari Cooper. They are down to bare bones when it comes to offensive weapons. Moving on, we have the Eagles and the Giants in a rivalry match. The Eagles come into MetLife Stadium and win 28-3 behind a huge Saquon Barkley return game. He would go for 176 yards on 17 carries with a score as he just ran all over the Giants. He was the bulk of the Philadelphia offense. Jalen only threw 14 times, completing 10 passes and 141 yards and a score that he threw up to A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts also had 2 rushing touchdowns, as well as just a efficient game for the Eagles offense. Got them back to looking like the super team that they looked like when they were in the Super Bowl. Now, this is against the Giants, so you got to take it with a grain of salt, but the Eagles did turn it around and look good. Their defense had 8 sacks and held the Giants to only a total of 119 yards, as their defense is playing back to shape. And out of those 8 sacks, 5 of them were from Georgia alumni. So the Philadelphia Georgia Bulldogs is full in effect, as that defense is looking very good for the Eagles. 8 sacks is a lot, even if it is against the Giants' pretty bad offensive line. For the Giants, it was a total embarrassment. They got dominated on both sides of the ball, and Daniel Jones just looked – it was sad to watch how incompetent he looked and how paranoid he was running for his life behind an offensive line that, quite frankly, couldn't block a 6-year-old in a wheelchair. It's that bad in the New York Giants locker room, as their offensive line can't get a push for the running game. The running game was just bad. It was very bad. And the passing game wasn't very bad. It wasn't very good. The protection just didn't hold up. Obviously, getting sacked 8 times is going to take a toll on a quarterback. He was benched. Daniel Jones was benched in the 4th quarter, but it did absolutely nothing. Bringing in Drew Lock, he wasn't able to get much going either. And it's safe to say Brian Daboll, the head coach for the New York Giants, is now firmly on the hot seat, as his team lacks any bright spot. Like, there's nothing going for this Giants team. They have a decent, better than decent, a stud stacked defensive line, but they just can't use that to build into anything else. As they also have Malik Neighbors. I forgot about Malik Neighbors. He's an excellent elite wide receiver, even as a rookie, but with no one to throw to him and no O-line to protect to give him time. It's just a disaster over there in New York, as they are probably looking ahead to next season and the NFL draft, and hopefully to get Daniel Jones' replacement in there and some help on the offensive line. We are moving on. We have the Dolphins facing the Colts. The Dolphins and the Colts put on probably the most boring game of the week, as the Colts win 16-10. The Colts were going to go back with Anthony Richardson over Joe Flacco this game, as Richardson is healthy after missing 2 games to an oblique injury. He continues to struggle. He looked bad. No, I wouldn't say bad, but not very good. Just 10 for 24 for just 129 yards. He added 56 yards on the ground on 14 attempts, which is the highest on the team. I don't know if you want your quarterback coming off an injury like that to be the team's leading rusher, which it's just a bad situation in Indianapolis as injuries are starting to pile up and cost them their season. But they do move on to 4-3 as they get a win. And Grant Stewart, he's normally a special teams guy, but he did have an amazing game. He came in and finished with a team high 18 tackles, and he even made a game-changing play where he stuffed the fullback in the backfield and allowed for Zaire White to come in and strip the ball and take it away. The Dolphins are embarrassing without Tua. He is now able to come back after his 4-week stint on IR. He is able to come back, but if I was the Dolphins, I would heavily think about bringing him back. Tyler Huntley did go down late in the game with a shoulder injury, and the Dolphins turned to Tim Boyle yet again, but it still proved to nod as they weren't able to come back in this game. Only 4 targets between top receivers Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. That really limited the offense and what the offense could do, as they had to become very one-dimensional when the run game going. They did move the ball very well on the ground, going for 188 yards, but struggled to find the end zone as they lose this game 16-10. Just scoring 10 points is obviously not going to get it done in the NFL. Huntley did have a touchdown pass to Jonnu Smith. That was the first touchdown pass that Miami has thrown since week 2. And it was also the first time since 2022 that a Miami tight end caught a pass touchdown. So they went all of last season and so far this season without catching a single touchdown at the tight end position. The Dolphins are probably having another waste of a season as Tua just can't stay healthy. Obviously, a bad concussion. They're going to question his future moving forward with football, and they got a lot of things they need to figure out in that organization as they have a big offseason coming up. We are going to be moving on now to the Texans taking on the Packers. The Texans and the Packers put on a absolute, I wouldn't say clinic because both teams couldn't take care of the ball, but it was probably the second or third best game this week as the Texans lose it thanks to a Packers game-winning field goal as time expires. C.J. Stroud looked bad as he had his worst game as a pro, only completing 10 of his 21 passes for 86 yards and did not find the end zone. The offense was carried mostly by Joe Mixon, who carried the ball 25 times for 115 yards and had 2 scores to go with it. Returning from injury, Joe Mixon has just looked incredible. The Bengals did release him, thinking that he was at that age where he would start to regress, but now they are definitely missing him as he is going crazy with the Texans. Stroud was pressured on 48% of his dropbacks and was sacked 4 times, which is becoming a theme for this offensive line as they cannot protect C.J. Stroud. When you go out and you get a big investment in a quarterback at the number 2 spot in the draft, and you draft a guy and he comes in, he looks great his rookie year, just big plans for this guy moving forward. You have to be able to protect him. You have to. You can't let him be pressured on 48% of his dropbacks. That just develops a paranoia in a quarterback, and he's going to start to feel pressure that just isn't there the few times that his O-line does hold up. We've seen it in Carolina with Bryce Young. We're starting to see it with Drake May in New England as quarterbacks are just being thrown in these situations where the offensive line does them no favors, and they start feeling pressure that isn't there because they're so used to just escaping from pockets, and that definitely messes with a young quarterback's mind as they are trying to make the correct reads. They just too paranoid about the blitz, and they end up escaping pockets that are clean and causing sacks to make the situation even worse. The offensive line isn't bad. It's not a lack of talent. It's just a lack of putting it together. I feel like the game plan sometimes it's just not there. I feel like they overlook the offensive line when it comes to preparation time. They will need to get that checked. The defense was missing starter Kamari Lassiter at cornerback, who was replaced with D'Angelo Ross. Now, D'Angelo Ross isn't a bad replacement, but he comes in and allows an 158.3 passer rating, which is perfect when the Packers were targeting his side of the field. He also gave up a touchdown, which just put more salt in the wound as the Texans' depth as being exposed on their defense, as they definitely are starting to look like they have more holes than we thought coming into the season, as the Texans were one of the Super Bowl projected teams, or up there, definitely a contender. I wouldn't say that they aren't a contender. I would just say that the Texans definitely have some improving to do, and they need to find a way to get back in the win column next week. I don't think the season is over for the Texans. I think they definitely can bounce back, but they got a couple of things to figure out. As for the Packers get their first victory over a team that has a winning record so far this season. Self-inflicting wounds, including a pair of Jordan Love's interceptions, looked like they were going to cost the game for the Packers, but they were able to come back and win it with a game-winning field goal. Shout out to my cousin, David Dale. He was actually lifelong Packers fan from South Carolina, was able to go up to Wisconsin and see that game. Glad you were able to get that experience. Looked like you guys have a great time up there, and I'm glad you were able to see an amazing game and a game winner. Must have been a crazy experience there at Lambeau, as Jordan Love went 24 for 33, 222 yards, and 3 touchdowns with 2 interceptions. It was, again, not his best game, but he did get the job done against a tough defense, as he's starting to step into the mold of a leader, and he's able to learn from his mistakes and, put the team on his back and do what he needs to do. Definitely a guy with a lot of poise. He plays with a lot of poise, and he has my complete respect, even though he does turn the ball over a lot. I feel like a lot of that is just from him missing time. I feel like he's still getting his timing back and his coordination with his receivers, as receivers have missed time as well, Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. But overall, a young group in the receiving core is starting to come together. Romeo Doubs had a great game. 8 grabs for 94 yards. Couldn't find the end zone, but you know who did? The running back, Josh Jacobs. That's his name. I couldn't remember for a second there. But Josh Jacobs finally gets his first receiving touchdown in his career. He had 121 consecutive catches without a touchdown. And that was the NFL record for the most in history. He breaks that record today. He was able to get his first touchdown. And just a great sight for Josh Jacobs. I'm sure he was waiting on that one. It was funny, the commentators actually just so happened to point out that stat right before he was able to get his touchdown. So a little bit of the opposite of the commentators' curse there, as they help him break that record. The defense looked great against a usually high-powered Texans offense. The defense just really looked good. The Texans usually come in and throw at least 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, the usual C.J. Stroud recipe. But without Nico Collins, he has struggled. The Packers defense is young and definitely stepped up and had a great game, as they were able to get the win thanks to a last-second game-winning field goal. Can't stress that game-winning field goal enough. Just a crazy sight. As time expired, they complete the comeback and win versus the Texans in Lambeau. As we are moving on to the Raiders versus the Rams. You got the Raiders and the Rams. The Rams win this one 21-15, and their young defense absolutely balled out. All 20 of their points were scored off of turnovers caused by the defense. 3 interceptions gave the Rams a short field, and then a scoop and score for a touchdown. The defense just looked a lot better than they have so far at any point this season so far. They definitely carried the game, as the offense stuttered and couldn't find consistency. One good part on the offense, though, they did have Kyren Williams have another 2-touchdown performance. He has like 7 multiple touchdown performances in his career so far, and he has 24 since the beginning of last year, which is the most in the NFL during that time. The defense has just definitely stepped up for the Rams. I can't stress that enough, as they basically controlled this game and ruined Gardner Minshew as soon as he came in for Aiden O'Connell. Um, the Rams offense is trying to get healthy, is get their top two receivers, Puka Nakua and Cooper Kupp, back. They could be a dangerous team, but right now are definitely towards the bottom of the league, as the injuries definitely have hurt this team and cost them what could have been a pretty good season. But there's still a lot of time left, so they could make a push for the playoffs. We don't know. They'll just definitely have to get healthy. Moving on to the Raiders. The Raiders continue to have quarterback problems. They would start the game with Aiden O'Connell, but he would leave with a broken thumb on his throwing hand late in the first quarter. Gardner Minshew would come in and throw for 15 for 34, 154 yards, and 3 interceptions. He also lost a fumble that led to a touchdown after coming in for Aiden O'Connell. He will miss a couple weeks due to that broken thumb in his throwing hand, and the Raiders definitely aren't pleased about that, having to move back to Gardner Minshew for their quarterback position, as he now has 10 turnovers on the season. Not ideal for the Raiders over there. But bright spot, Alexander Madison. He joined the Raiders as a backup to Zamir White, but has been taking most of the running back 1 reps recently from him, as he goes for 92 yards against the Rams, which is the most so far that he has had in any game this season. Alexander Madison, definitely a talented back, but has been in bad situations in his career. Definitely was one of the only bright spots for the Raiders offense on Sunday. Another bright spot is young superstar tight end Brock Bowers. He is a superstar on a crappy team. He is a Lamborghini parked at the trap house. He is whatever you want to call him. You can't call him bad though, because he's incredible. He looks like the versatile superstar that he was at Georgia, even with the Raiders' crummy quarterback play. If they can somehow get some quarterback in the roster, or in the door, they will able to have a nice cornerstone for their offense the next several years, and be just a Travis Kelce type reliable weapon for the Raiders. If the Raiders can get stable quarterback play, they definitely do have a bright future. But this is a very important offense for the Raiders, or very important off season for the Raiders, as they look to address their offense, because their offense is definitely taking a hit, especially after losing Devontae Adams in a trade to the Jets. The Raiders probably going to reset again, and they dropped this one 20-15 against a just injury battled Rams teams. It just goes to show you how bad this Raiders team is. Moving on to the Commanders and the Panthers. The Commanders and the Panthers. Oh, my sweet Panthers got absolutely destroyed. I love the Panthers, but let me just tell you, we suck. We lose this one 40-7. The Commanders ran all over us, even after Jaden Daniels left the game with an injury in the first quarter. Marcus Mariota came in and lit the Panthers defense up, showing just how bad of a group we really have. We have no pass rush. Our secondary is banged up. Our linebackers are banged up. We just have holes at every position. I think we're missing 9 out of 11 of our day one starters. So that just shows you how bad this defense is and how injured it is. Everything went well for the Commanders offense, as they didn't have a single hiccup. They scored at will and were able to come out and take a 37-0 lead at halftime. And the Panthers just obviously weren't able to do anything after halftime, losing this game 40-7. Jaden Daniels has a rib injury, and he may have to miss time. It hasn't come out yet how bad the injury is or how long he's going to miss. But Marcus Mariota came in, and the offense didn't miss a beat against Carolina. But that probably won't be the same next week, as they do take on Chicago, who has a top 10 defense by, to everyone's surprise this season, as that's not a great group. But they are able to have a top 10 defense so far this year. That could be costly to the Commanders. They can't afford to to lose a couple of games as they have a strong start to the season. They look to build off that and hopefully make the playoffs. This will definitely stunt their chances if Jaden Daniels is out for a while. For the Panthers get decimated yet again. There was 2 horrible Andy Dalton interceptions. One of them was turned for a touchdown. But that instantly put this game out of reach as 37-0 at halftime. Like this game was practically over before it started. Chuba Hubbard was literally our only offense for the entire game. He had 52 yards and a score on 17 attempts, which isn't crazy numbers, but that was by far the best performance we got out of any of our players. The Panthers have been outscored by 92 points combined in the first halves of games this season, which is the worst in team history. A bunch of fans are calling for the firing of the defensive coordinator, Injero Ivero, but I don't think it's his fault. I think he's a talented coach. We have a good scheme, but our 3-4 scheme relies heavily on players making plays, and we definitely don't have the players to make the plays right now. Panthers, we definitely are in contention for the number 1 overall pick. Yet again, this would be the 3rd year running. Just a horrible situation in Carolina. It really hurts my heart just to talk about it. We are poverty. We are poverty for sure. As we are moving on, we have the Super Bowl rematch. The Kansas City Chiefs taking on the San Francisco 49ers. The Chiefs going to win this one 28-18 in the rematch of the Super Bowl as the Chiefs defense dominates. They have 3 interceptions against Brock Purdy in a game where both teams are very familiar with each other, and the 49ers just so happen to come in this one very banged up, especially on offense, missing all of their top weapons. You have Brandon Ayuk went down with now known as a torn ACL. Jawan Jennings missed this game. Deebo Samuel left at halftime. Christian McCaffrey has obviously been out, just hit after hit for this 49ers offense, 49ers team as a whole, really, as they just seem to keep taking 2 steps back every time they start to even think about taking a step forward. Patrick Mahomes, 16 for 27 with 2 picks, and he did have a rushing touchdown. What's crazy about that rushing touchdown, you have this San Francisco 49ers defender who just is shredded, looks like an absolute Greek god. He's ripped, and he gets hit-sticked. He gets trucked. He gets, dare I say, bitched by Patrick Mahomes at the 1-yard line as Patrick Mahomes trucks him into the end zone for the score. The Chiefs dominated the game on the ground as they had 184 rushing yards as a team. That was able to shorten this game and ultimately help the Chiefs hold on to a lead late in the game and win it against the high-powered 49ers team. Noah Gray was actually the leading receiver for the Chiefs, and he's obviously a backup tight end. So when you hear a tight end led the Chiefs for receiving, you don't really think Noah Gray, but he had 4 catches for 66 yards, didn't find the end zone as no receiver found the end zone. They scored 4 touchdowns, and all 4 were on the ground, and all 4 were converted in the red zone, as well as the Chiefs came into this game one of the league's worst red zone teams, and they were able to convert 4 of 5 attempts in the red zone against the Niners. The 49ers come up short against the Chiefs again. At this point, you have to be wondering what the Niners need to do to beat the Chiefs. Even though they did come into this one banged up, they did have their worst performance so far against the Chiefs. Brock Purdy goes 17 for 31, 212 yards, and 3 interceptions. He did one-up Mahomes on the ground, though. He had 2 touchdowns on the ground. He had to do everything himself in this one, as he just all of his key contributors were out of this game with injuries. George Kittle had a good game, as he was really one of the only options for Brock Purdy. But ultimately, that offense needs to get healthy and needs to try to figure out anything they can do to scheme guys open, as now it's going to get a lot harder with their top stars being out. Everything seems to be going wrong for this 49ers team, as they once had aspirations for a Super Bowl run again, but are now starting to look like a borderline wild card team. Maybe not even, maybe they may even miss the playoffs. Probably not, but don't be surprised when that happens, as we are now moving on to the Jets and the Steelers in Sunday Night Football. Well, Sunday Night Football this week featured the Steelers winning 37-15 over the Jets. The Jets fired their head coach 2 weeks ago, brought in Davante Adams last week, and it still only resulted in 15 points against the Steelers on Sunday night primetime game. He only caught 3 passes for 30 yards, even though he was targeted 10 times. The Steelers definitely made it a point of emphasis to keep him in check. There definitely was going to be some growing pains him coming to New York with to reunite with Aaron Rodgers, but to be targeted 10 times and only catch the ball 3 times, that's definitely not on the same page with your quarterback, to say the least. Rodgers throws 2 interceptions as he went 24 for 39, 276 yards, and had a touchdown to go with the 2 picks. He now has more picks than Zach Wilson had the final 2 years of his stint in New York. He had 7 2 years ago and then 7 last year, and Aaron Rodgers now has 8 so far on this season, as we are only through week 7. Not a good look for the Aaron Rodgers experiment in New York, as they now fall to 2-4 and definitely need answers, as they can't protect Aaron Rodgers. Their defense has just not looked like themselves at all. Breece Hall was the bulk of their offense, as he went for 141 all-purpose yards, and he did have a score on the ground to go with it as well. Russell Wilson got his first start of the season and made the Jets defense look bad. They definitely had a chance to make Mike Tomlin look silly for starting Russell Wilson over Justin Fields, but honestly validated that choice for him, as Russell Wilson had one of his best games in a couple of years. The Jets defense did also give up 400 plus yards of total offense, as just another disappointing fact for the Jets team that is now 2-5. I said 2-4 earlier. Excuse me. I mean 2-5 now, just to add insult to injury for the Jets. As for the Steelers, Mike Tomlin looks super happy with his choice of making Russell Wilson the starting quarterback. He did come out and look a little rusty at first, which was to be expected, but he did turn it on after the first quarter and went 16 for 29 for 264 yards and 2 touchdowns, adding a third one on the ground as well. Najee Harris also looked very well on the ground, as he went for 102 yards and a score on 21 attempts. George Pickens had his best game of the season, going for 111 yards and a score on just 5 catches. This entire Steelers offense is looking brand new, is looking like it's all coming together now with Russell Wilson under center. Not to say that it didn't look pretty good with Justin Fields. It just looks better with the veteran Russell Wilson being under center. The Steelers continue to look like a playoff team and look ahead to see what the rest of the season has in store with Russell Wilson as a starter. He's looking back to form, but this is just one game, so you do have to take it with a grain of salt. So moving forward, the Steelers do have another bright spot, as Beanie Bishop is a rookie. He picked off Aaron Rodgers twice in just his second primetime game. The second one was a pick six, as he is an undrafted free agent rookie, the first undrafted free agent rookie to have a pick six on Aaron Rodgers in his career. Huge find for the Steelers, as they get another great player. Special teams comes through again for the Steelers, as they have a blocked field goal, which led to a touchdown. That ultimately was a big swing for the Steelers offense, as they were able to end up winning this game 37-15. The Jets went up 15-6 early in the game, but ultimately never had a chance for the rest of the game. And that's going to do it for Football Sunday in Week 7 in the NFL, As we look ahead to Monday Night Football, we have a doubleheader tonight between the Bucks and the Ravens, and the Chargers and the Cardinals. I have the Bucks losing to the Ravens 36-30. High-powered offense, both high-powered offenses. I have Lamar Jackson and the Ravens squeaking out a win by 6 there, and the Chargers and the Cardinals. I have the Chargers winning 24-18. I think the Chargers defense gets it done there. Probably another better game for Justin Herbert as they're looking to increase the passing in the offense as he gets more healthy. Have the Chargers ultimately winning by 6 as well, 24-18. 2 good games tonight, hopefully, as I will see you tomorrow with a Monday Night Football review. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, comment down below your hot takes for this NFL season. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for watching and all of the support. I am Aaron Shedd from Gopher2 Sports, and I will see you guys next time as I am out of here.